Well, Beth, exponential growth in workplace technologies and methods people use to communicate likely means that the volume of ESI is exploding and will continue to explode. And as you mentioned earlier, resides in many places. As you peer forward into the future of data analytics, data forensics, and making ESI more accessible to more users, what are a few of the enabling change dynamics, as well as challenges you think will be most impactful going forward?
Sure. So I think that, of course, volume's always an issue. That one's the obvious answer, right? I think, like I said before, I think artificial intelligence and I think the way that we design our systems to think is going to be a really big piece of it, because frankly, it's so big that it's inconceivable. We can't, there's no way that we can put hands on every piece of data. And there's no way that we can really even understand how much is out there. So that's something that we're going to have to be aided by technology, by computers, by programs. And I think that there is, I know there's always questions about privacy and security that come up with this large amount of data and having your information be all over the place. That's something that we get a lot, particularly in this field. Ransomware is hitting our legal folks pretty hard lately. So there have been a whole lot of questions, even here in Oklahoma, about privacy and security and how to handle that. I think that, these folks that are initiating a lot of these ransomware attacks, I mean, they're doing so with law firms that are 10 to 20 folks, even here, here in the Midwest. And that is definitely a huge issue for a lot of folks. And it might seem like the data that they have is really not even all that important. Back to my sort of silly metaphor about data being air, it's so interesting that it is, your data is so important to the functioning of your business, to the functioning of your life, that when it's taken away, which is what happens when you get ransomware, we take your information away, you're willing to do just about anything to get it back. And a lot of these folks, if you've got backups, then that means you were smart, you had spare oxygen bottles, you can be like, well, whatever, no big, but if you don't, then it's absolutely critical to get that back right away. The reality is that most of us have essentially agreed to trade privacy for convenience, to trade security for convenience. And in, I think, a lot of areas of our lives, that's probably okay. I know that there are a lot of people that have trouble with companies knowing so much about them. And to an extent, I agree with them. And also, I have to say, there are some times that it's really nice that Target knows what I want. There are some times that it's really good that I've been looking for something particular on Facebook and then an ad pops up for it. And they're like, actually, that's crazy useful, So there's definitely some trade-offs that we have essentially collectively agreed. Your information is not going to be particularly private. And frankly, it's not going to be particular how many layers of security. And each of those levels brings a level of inconvenience to it that you want to add to your life. So that's, I think, two major things that are coming. I think AI is going to become much more robust. And I think that even though all of us interact with it right now, I think it will become even more on a user level for somebody like me. Because even though I work in the tech field and I work alongside a bunch of really, really smart people, I got a degree in biology from Middlebury. I am not a computer scientist by training. And, I think even those of us that aren't as deep into it are going to have a better understanding of how, AI can really help us, and how AI, frankly, is already a huge part of our lives. So,
yeah, it strikes me that particularly for students today, but everyone in general, regardless of your particular professional focus, career interests, that those two things from a technology perspective, AI, and then also just cyber security, are two dimensions that perhaps everyone needs to be a little bit more familiar with, even if it's not the focus of their work, since it will likely affect their work in some way. I am curious, and this may push beyond, Avansic's focus and your experiences, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are around the intersection of digital forensics and things like disinformation and, the growing deep fake capabilities.
It's interesting. So we do digital forensics and eDiscovery. We also offer expert services. A couple of the folks at the company do expert testimony and expert reports and that type of thing. And it is incredible how in the last 2 years, the vast majority of those expert opinions have been about document authentication. They have been about photographs. Is this photograph real? Was it cropped? Was it changed? Was this Word document or email faked? And I think that's only going to continue, frankly. We're in a really interesting part of our culture and our world where we kind of question everything, right? We're questioning all kinds of information. Is science real? We've had a lot of societal questions around what's real, what's fake. And this is absolutely something that's going to continue to grow. And it is going to be fascinating to see. You use the word intersection, and I think it's an appropriate one to use here as well. The intersection between where computers and where humans find themselves figuring out what is real, what is not. I think that I wish I had a crystal ball and could figure out what was going on, but I'm kind of alongside you. I'm curious about where it's going to go in the future. I know that there are so many brilliant people doing work, both for good and maybe not, that are in that space. And I think that I'm just equally curious where it's going to come out, both on a technological level and on a human level and a cultural and societal level, about what's real and what isn't.
Right. It's an interesting challenge that we will be facing as we go forward. The balance between authentication and, let's say, like the potential for the metaverse as we move forward in time, where you're actually in something that isn't real, but it sure feels real to you.